Hi, and welcome to another episode of Career Reshaped. I'm Pauline.
And I'm Natasha, and today we have Mario Lanzarotti, who is the founder of Aligned Founders, a global movement helping male founders transition from overworked operations into aligned, powerful leaders. He has coached more than 2,000 entrepreneurs and reached 2.7 million and more views on his TEDx. Mario shows founders how to expand their capacity, so growth comes from clarity and confidence, not pressure and grind. Thank you for joining us today, Mario.
Natasha, thank you so much for having me. Pauline, it's a pleasure to be here. Looking forward to the conversation.
Same.
We want to start with how your career began. It began in aviation and as pilot training, which is super exciting. What did that early career choice teach you about yourself?
Primarily that success without fulfillment is no real success at all. And that came because I chose this career path because I thought that it would give me all the things that I felt I needed more of, which was approval from society, from my family, friends. It was a sense of status and power. You know, the classical kind of male arc is, if I have a great job, the women will come to me, I'll have the money, I don't have any problems in life. That was sort of my very limited thinking at that time. And I found success in terms of I got what I thought I wanted and needed, but it didn't really give me what I actually needed, which was more of like a true sense of fulfillment, a true sense of joy and passion that I would experience on a daily basis, not at the end of some long pursued goal or target. And that career choice left me completely. Am I allowed to swear here, by the way?
Yeah.
That career choice left me fucked. And I was depressed. I was burned out. I had suffered from chronic back pain. I was experiencing suicidal ideation. And it really completely took away everything that I built my identity on. And so it was extremely painful, but I wouldn't want it to happen any other way. And so I would say, the greatest lesson was that success without fulfillment is no real success.
Right. So I assume that is sort of what's impacted your later career decisions and where you've gone from there?
Yeah, totally. Because then I was like, I just burnt myself so hard. Now I really have to reflect what it is that I actually want that isn't just ticking the boxes in terms of money and status, but what is it actually that I want? And that was a very hard question to answer because, I think harder today than it was then because there's even more choices, at least from what we perceive because of the internet and social media. But for me at the time, I remember I started watching YouTube videos from Tony Robbins because I didn't really talk to anyone because I was too scared that if I talk to people, everything will be worse because then everyone will judge me and label me as an absolute loser. And this is very much the male mentality of when you're struggling, don't talk about it because then you're really fucked because then no one wants you anymore. You're useless. And so then I went onto YouTube, I found Tony Robbins, and it was just like, it was like the story in the Bible of the burning bush. It's just like, oh my goodness. It's like everything inside is like, what is this thing? And it's like, I had never seen anything like it, coming from Germany. Also, these kind of things, coaching, public speaking, were seen as like, snake oil salesman kind of people. But I just ignored all of that because I felt so connected. And when I saw Tony Robbins change other people's lives and help them rebuild themselves, I was like, that's it. That's it. I don't know how, I don't know when, but this is it. And so I aligned my whole career choice towards hopefully one day me being able to do exactly that. And I just let go of how it would happen. But I said, okay, keep this in mind that one day you're going to be there. And that was an incredible kind of experience that unfolded from there.
Wow.
Awesome. So when you co-founded your New York City startup, how did you view your career at that point? And how did it shift after the exit from there?
Yeah. So I remember, I started out as an intern. I was studying in New York, and part of the studies was an agreement that we had to do an internship for 3 months. And most of the students were going off to like bigger agencies, bigger companies. And I was like, I know that when you work at bigger companies, you're often put into a corner office and giving a stack of things, just work through that, whatever. And I was like, I don't want that. I want to work with a founder closely, because then I have to work much harder. I know that, but I will learn way, 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 way more. And so at a trade show, I saw this guy, his name is Nick. And he had his shoes laid out there. And, I love shoes, being half Italian, obviously. It's in my blood. I asked him everything about those shoes. He was like, man, these are sexy. I was like, well, tell me about it. And we started talking and talking. I was really fascinated. He's like, and I asked him, it's like, hey, do you by any chance like hire any interns? And he's like, yeah, I actually need interns because this is a side gig that I have. I'm working full time. I was like, okay. So then we met up, and I said to him, hey, look, I'll come on board as an intern, but only if you give me the chance to become your co-founder. And he's like, okay, you've got balls. But
I love it.
I don't know if you're talking shit or if you're actually serious. So he said, sure, I'll give you a chance. I was like, all right, I'll prove myself. And I did. And I worked extremely hard. And then at the end of it, he said, okay, I'll make you my co-founder. And then I told him one thing. And I said, look, this is not going to be my ultimate focus. I said, I want to be a coach and a speaker, and I want to do it in the US, because in Germany, there's no real market for this and people aren't really open to it. So the way that I see this is my jumping board to that. And I will give you my absolute best. I'm fully dedicated. I'm all in. And just know that one day I'm going to jump off this train. And I need you to understand that this is not optional, that this is going to happen. So are you okay with that? And he said, absolutely. And he said, how long do you think? I said, I don't know. It could be 3 years, 4 years, 5 years. But, until then, I am all in with this. And he said, okay, great. And that's exactly what happened.
Are you still, even though you jumped ship, are you still co-founding with this guy with the shoes, or you've?
So we sold the business after 5 years in business together. We sold the company, and we're still good friends. I very much have a soft spot in my heart for him. Because he went from boss to mentor to partner, and really learned so much because of him, and gained access to an incredible opportunity that I would have never been able to get if it wasn't for his trust that he put in me.
Well, you said earlier that you took this time off to discover yourself or rediscover yourself. How long did it take? Like, how much time did you give yourself to do that? And did you put pressure, like a timetable on it, or you just, what comes come?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I would say it was a mix of things. Now, when I quit my pilot career, I had, I would say, a year and a half or so where I was just floating around, doing a job here, a job there. And then I traveled. I actually left Germany. I went to South Africa and sort of like spent a couple months there to just come back, like emotionally, mentally, because I was in a very dark place. And after that, I began studying fashion management in Berlin. And that was sort of my I would describe it as my most hedonistic time, where I was, studying, I was doing some work, but I was obviously also partying a lot and just letting loose. And for me, I come from a background where I've always been very disciplined, very locked in, and not really allowing myself a lot of leisure in just living life without a specific fixed destination. And then when I graduated, I went to New York, and, it was hustle grind. It was 6-7 days a week, just work. And on the side, I don't know how I did it, but like I've always managed to squeeze in some going to a seminar or doing like a weekend thing, or to train me in coaching, to train me in leadership, to train me in mindset and psychology. I would coach a couple people here and there. I was extremely locked in. I was very robotic also, like get up at 5, go to bed at 10, like da, 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 da. And I pulled it off for a couple of years, but again, it came at a great cost. And then when I sold the business, I gave myself 6 months to figure this out, this coaching thing. I was like, I'm going to have enough money to survive, so I don't need to make anything for 6 months. I'm okay. And then I just allowed myself to study, to learn. And I took the next couple years, I didn't focus it in a way where I'd say, okay, my goal now is to build this super successful coaching and speaking business. I want to become a great leader, a great coach. That's my goal. And so I invested tens of thousands into trainings, coachings. I sat with shamans in the Amazon and Africa, in North America with indigenous tribes. I went to meditation retreats and therapy, you name it. Like I did all, because what I saw in the market, it was like there's a lot of people that just slap a label onto themselves, say, I'm a coach now, and then they work with people on very delicate matters in their lives, and they don't really see the responsibility that comes with that. And I said, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to walk the talk. And so the first, I would say 3-4 good 4 years, maybe even 5 years, we're focused on my own healing, on my own inner expansion. And it's been only the last 2 years that I've been really focused on scaling my coaching business. And that's where I'm at right now.
That's amazing. Before you were saying, you're grinding and putting hard work. It's not the hard work's not the issue. Is why you're working hard. What's the motivation? Because when it's hard work for something that fulfills you, that's a joy all of a sudden. Like that hard work fuels you or feeds you to keep going. Because you were saying you're working 6-7 days a week and you still added more hours to your day, little sleep, travel, trying to meet with the right people. I mean, that could burn you out as well, but it didn't, because you were actually doing something that fed your soul and you kept going. So it's not hard work. It's where, or the motivation, the reason why you're working hard is what's essential here. And like you were saying before, people are trapped doing what they think society will approve of it rather than what they feel is true for them. So I think it's amazing.
So I think I know the answer based on what you've just said, but I'd like to know, what was the most challenging career transition from you? Because you started with the pilot trainee and everything and moved to a co-founder, but then founder to coach. What was the hard part, or were they equally as hard?
That's a great question. So I would say becoming a founder for the first time and then now having to manage, lead people. And I went from being an intern to all of a sudden servicing multi-millionaire and billionaire clients. We had 2 billionaire clients, very, very famous people. One of them I'm not allowed to disclose because I had to sign an NDA. But the other one was the CEO of Google, still today, Sundar Pichai. He was one of our clients. And, NFL Super Bowl champions, Seattle Seahawks, celebrities, A-listers, these kind of people. And I'm like, here's a guy who comes from like a tiny ass village in Germany.
How do you talk to them?
Exactly. And it's like, oh, okay. These guys make more money than my entire generation has made, so to speak. And now I'm selling shoes to them, and I'm like, okay, like, how do you make that shift in terms of confidence? So there was, impostor syndrome. There was a lot of self-doubt. There was a lot of like, I don't even fit in here. I had an accent when I first started out because my first language is German, my second is Italian, and my third is English, which is, school, but mostly self-taught. And so there's just a lot that I had to deal with. But then I would say when I went through that, then and transitioned into coaching. Now in coaching, it's a fine element here is because I'm not just a coach, also a speaker, is when you're a speaker, you're sort of the center of the stage. Everyone looks at you, they're looking at you. But as a coach, you have to remove yourself as much as possible, because you have to make space for that person, for their uniqueness to shine through. So there's a lot of identity shifting that takes place, and that sometimes that's just like, who the fuck am I? It's like, how do I navigate all that? So I would say it's that, and then I have another coach that works for me in my company, and I'm looking to bring on more. And there's now this sense of like, okay, training people in my methodologies and then trusting them with something that's so sacred to me when I coach another human being is like, I'm giving them everything and I'm making sure that it's a very safe container with them. Now I'm trusting other people to do that under my name. It's like, okay, that's all right. That's another sort of transition. So I'd say those were the main ones, the hardest ones that I've been facing.
Thanks for watching. We'll be back in just a moment. This is just a quick note to let you know this is part 1 of a 3-part series with Mario.
Interesting that you've mentioned that, because Pauline and I have also been talking like when we want to expand or get bigger, and that's obviously always the goal, to make sure they do it with our touch, the way we envision it, and because we do things in a very holistic approach and really get to know our clients really well and understand really what their desires are and what their vision is for their careers. And not a lot of, I'm sure there are other coaches that do that, but it's how we talk to them and our personalities come out. So I understand that probably a fear that you had of how is this coach going to implement my teachings and replicate and do the same thing.
Right.
It's also about letting go. I don't ever want to give anything away. It's all mine. Not in a greedy way, in the way where it's like, well, I'm going to do this task and this task and this task and this task, and I don't trust anyone else to do it, so I'm just going to do it all. I'd rather stay up. I'd rather work on the weekends, work late at night, but it's going to be done my way. And that's where the control is. It's my way. And I keep having to remind myself that just because it's not my way doesn't mean it's still not a good way, or maybe even a better way. So it's hard. So how did you do it? How did you let go?
Yeah. So that's a great question. And I always bring in the same analogy whenever I get asked this question, because it's an analogy that makes so much sense. So this is my cup of tea, right? Mm-hmm. Right now, it's lukewarm. But I have a bunch of fresh tea here on the side, which is pretty hot. So if I pour it in here, how much longer do you think I could hold on to this cup in the way that I'm holding it?
Your hand burns.
Yeah. So I would drop it very quickly. And that analogy is the letting go process. It's like, Pauline, what you just shared is this is very common among founders, among leaders, and I face it myself, is the sense of like, yeah, but no one can really do it like me. And then when you're using that mentality and you couple it with a fear of other people making mistakes, which you cannot control because it's out of your control whether they make a mistake or not, now you are very likely not to give people a lot of chances. And think about it in this way. When the reason you came to do things as good as you do them and the way that you trust them, you had to go through a lot of mistakes. You made tons of mistakes and you learn from all those mistakes. That's how you get better. That's literally how any human being gets good at anything in life. And so what I would suggest is you have to grant a tolerance for mistakes to people that you want to take over work that you're doing right now. And if you're not doing that, and this is where the analogy comes in, if you're not doing that, you're holding on to a cup that's already burning your hand, because you become the bottleneck of the business. You become the bottleneck of the section within your team. And that means that no amount of strategy, no amount of hours that you're adding to your plate is actually going to move the needle.
That's very true.
Good analogy.
It's definitely food for thought. So, yeah.
Looking back, so we've gone into a bit of detail now about your career and how you've gotten to where you are. What's one career lesson you wish you had learned earlier?
Have hard conversation often and quickly. Like, this is probably the one thing that I see derail any company. Like, if I had to bring it down to one thing, it's that. Because when so often we avoid communicating our needs and our desires. And so within a company, if you don't communicate to, like, take the two of you, right? You run this podcast together, you work together. Like, if Natasha has something that she isn't happy about the way that Pauline is doing it, but then goes, whatever, it's not a biggie, just put it to the side. You're adding it to like a little mountain of resentment. And that mountain can be tiny, which is fine. But oftentimes what I've seen, it ends up growing. It ends up growing. It ends up growing. And the more this mountain of resentment grows, the more trust breaks apart between the two of you. And when trust breaks apart between two people, collaboration starts to break apart. And now that means you start to withhold from each other. And so when you're withholding now, one of you or both of you take on too much work and you're doing things that you're not supposed to be doing, which means now you're wasting your time, your energy on activities that don't move the needle. And the same is true for employees, right? I have a client of mine who's been struggling a lot with leadership because he's been falling into people-pleasing tendencies. And so he's had 2 times before I came in where one of his employees thought that he was somehow his co-founder. And I was like, did you ever give them a contract or tell them that they're the co-founder? And he's like, no, I never did that. And he said, but they just keep speaking over me. He's like, how does that work? And so then I looked at his leadership style and he's like, first of all, he's always trying to be the nicest guy. It's like, hey, it's okay. If the deadline, we'll make it work, don't worry about it. And then I asked him, how do you actually feel about this person? He's like, just so fucking angry. I'm so angry. I'm like, that doesn't come through when you speak though. It's always smiling and thumbs up. And it's like, how come you're not saying anything? And so this is what I mean is like you're avoiding a hard conversation because a lot of people are afraid of confrontation, because confrontation brings up rejection, and rejection brings up, I'm not good enough, or it brings up loneliness. And so these are the things that we try to avoid. But I would say my number one career lesson for me is have hard conversations fast and have them often. Number one, it makes you a much more powerful leader. Number two, it just removes conflict as it starts, not when it's too late. And it creates a culture of openness where people feel safe enough to express their ideas, their concerns, and that just creates an amazing work environment.